Calling all beings.
Welcome back to Calling All Beings. I'm your host, DJ, and our musical director, Money Nathan, to my right. Hey!
What's going on? I mean, I finally got around to getting that put together, and I want to apologize to Charlotte Thunderbird because it took me forever to just do that. But the music is so cool, and I had a great time putting it together. I know Kevin's been working on some stuff too, so we'll have all kinds of fun things to debut in the future with that. Really grateful to have her support in putting that little jingle together for us. So welcome to the new cab.
Yeah, my brother, Money Nathan, putting in that work. All right, I'm your host, TJ. That is my co-conspirator in this venture to make you all smile. That's what we endeavor to do, in short. And let us introduce to my left over here the lovely, the talented, the host of Deb's Data Dojo, none other than Deb. The host of Deb's Data Dojo.
What just happened?
Somebody listen. Deb, are you there?
Oh, I'm here. I'm sorry. I was so excited.
She wanted to hear it twice.
You're so okay. By the way, the host of Deb's Data Dojo. Say hello to Deb.
Hi, everybody.
What's up?
What's going on, Deb?
Yeah, I'm excited because we're talking about science today.
Yes.
Yeah, can I get an amen? And just below that, somebody who loves him some old stuff, and he also loves him some new stuff. He's a musician. He's a martial artist. Damn sexy beast, actually. Please put your hands together for Kevin.
Yeah!
Wow.
How was that?
That was strong. Good.
All right.
And the newest member of Calling All Beings, representing the Experiencer Nation, baby. She's not nationwide, she's worldwide. Put your hands together for Stephanie.
DJ, best intros ever. Thank you guys.
What's up?
Glad to be on board.
Yeah.
She's bad. She's nationwide like ZZ Top, baby. All right. Our next two guests are they're two of the stars of the film A Tear in the Sky by Caroline Corey. And we were put on to these two gentlemen by Miss Chrissy Newton, who was also in the movie, also part of Debrief Media, and her assistant there, Dylan, in her media venture. So we are very, very excited to welcome the intelligently cool and the coolly intelligent David Altman and Dave Mason. Put their hands together.
Hey.
Can I get an amen for these two brothers?
Amen.
Yes.
Amen.
Yes. What is going on, boys?
How's it going? Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We're having a good time.
Awesome.
It is a pleasure to have you guys. One of you brothers is doing some scientific business. I was looking over your stuff last night, checking out your equipment. Super impressed. Have some questions about that. I'm a little bit of a geek for certain types of collection systems myself, even though I play a jokester on here. And with David Altman, I want to find out a little bit about this brother. So if you would start with you, Mr. David, and as you so coolly suggested when we were backstage and I said something idiotic like, tell us about yourself now, you said, maybe we should wait till the show starts. I'm like, wow, you know what? We're going to give him a percentage of cab. At least we're going to talk about it. We'll talk about it.
Yep.
So go ahead,
Contract.
David. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going,
Nathan.
guys?
Sir.
So I guess I'll tell you how I got into this and what I do besides this. So I started looking into this stuff at a very young age. When my parents got divorced, I was probably like around 7 or 8. My mom and I went to go live with my grandmother, and she worked at the library. So after school, I would get dropped off at the library and just spend my days in the science fiction and paranormal sections, just reading whatever I could. Then years later, I mean, I always kind of looked into it personally, but through very strange circumstances, I ended up working in television, and I started working mainly on all of the different UFO shows. So I do consultant work for different series and documentaries, and I also do development, which is creating new TV shows.
So essentially, you were able to get into this on the creative side and bring it to the fore.
But so when I first joined up to do this, it wasn't even about Hollywood. I just wanted to do it with this expedition with my friends, and then it just turned out to be a movie, and so I was able to use both my research into UAP and my knowledge of structure for production into one thing.
It's great. It takes so many types that make this community of ours that we're coming at it from so many different angles. And this is why these conversations with other people that are like us, we're sort of part of this larger family. And now we can see how you fit in on that creative side to create something that people can watch and consume and go, huh, wow, that really is happening out there? That kind of thing. So Nathan, talk to Mr. Mason.
Yeah, well, first of all, I have a quick question for Mr.
Sure.
Altman. So David, I've always heard from people who've gotten into entertainment, who did it for their passion and everything, that it had its way of kind of dampening that passion. And for you, having done so many UFO shows and kind of having that really interest to begin with, has it changed that passion, or has it only kind of further?
No way, man. It's like, I love it. All I do 24/7 is my own research. What's really not in the movie, it didn't really fit in, was I did a lot of research for probably 2 years on nothing but Catalina Island and the area, talking to people at newspapers, fishermen, all sorts of different, like the people that run the whale watches, and got a lot of sighting reports. I got a lot of news articles from the 40s on sightings. So, it's something. I also did an episode of Expedition X with Josh Gates, and I did the Catalina Island episode. So, I mean, it just like worked out perfectly, just everything I had, just
amazing.
Yeah. So everything I learned, I can use for work pretty much.
Yeah, that's really great. Thanks for telling us about that, because I think you're right. The movie doesn't necessarily give you that context, but that helps a ton. So you did a lot of research, looked into the history, and I guess like you probably picked those sites after looking at all those different places where you could put up equipment. That was stuff that you did as well.
Right. Well, actually, the where we were going to set up, I think that was more up to Caroline and Kevin Day and probably Mason. I don't know much about what went on at the other location. I was on Catalina Island with Michael Hall. It was just me, Michael Hall, and our camera guy, Grant. And then Chrissy came just for a night. So the only way I really had communication with them was by phone. So, I saw what happened on Laguna when everybody else did when the movie came out. I mean, I saw the data as we were going over it when we were done, but I didn't know much until they told me.
Nice. Very cool. Well, I love the movie, and we're really excited to talk with you guys. The science is such a big part of this story, and particularly right now, I think that the public is hungry for information, not just sort of the sensational stories, although we like those too. And so it's just exciting to see. I was geeking out during this film, people who have come at this topic with a passion and an interest to try to get some real data and hopefully push this science forward. So really thank you for your contribution to that. And Mason, want to thank you as well. So I know we're going to go back and forth, kind of bounce around. DJ, do you want to kind of go through the panel?
I do. Yeah, I just have one just at the outset. I just have one question for Dave Mason, then we'll pass it over to Debs or Kevin, whoever's going next. So Dave Mason, so I saw your array of just at the outset, the FLIR cameras. I want to say you said you had 6?
8. We actually,
8.
we had one handheld, and so that was not hooked up to any recorder. And then we had 8 other FLIR cameras that were set up.
Are they looking in different spectrums, and that's why you had the 8? Or were they all seeing in the exact same spectrum, but you just were looking, it was a coverage issue?
It was more of a coverage issue.
Okay.
And it also related to temperature issue, because if you angle the cameras at different portions of the sky, you're going to have different background temperatures. So there is some spectral shift, but it was more of a coverage, trying to make sure that we weren't going to miss anything. And we had the cameras orientated from the rooftop facing toward the west, toward over Catalina Island, where we were up at it at different angles, and we notated the angles at which camera was aimed, and then even, of course, one camera aimed at the terminator of the ocean, so that we would just see if anything was happening in that region. So we wanted to cover a lot of ground, and we ran, all cameras 24/7, running them into digital recorders and studio quality recorders, and this stuff, was a lot of data storage at the rate that we were recording.
And can you just tell us, before we pass it over to Deb? Deb is our researcher on the show, and UFO Connector. If you go to her website, you're going to find an amazing dearth of stuff that she works on for hours, and just keeps adding documents and links every week. But could you tell us a little bit about yourself, please, just so the audience knows of your field of endeavor coming into this?
Well, it began at a very young age. Like Dave Altman, I was checking out books at the library. Of course, the internet didn't exist at the time, and it was kind of a taboo subject. If you were reading these UFO books, you didn't want to show this to your friends because they thought you were crazy. And a couple of things that I notated that was happening in the phenomenon that was reported was that many pilots were reporting that their onboard compasses were going crazy. The ship's navigational compasses also spinning wildly. And I came up with a device to detect that. I built a UFO detector at age 13, which comprised of a compass aimed at magnetic north with a phototransistor and an LED. I remember using parts from a broken television set, and I built this thing on a piece of plywood, and it worked. So whenever the compass would deviate from magnetic north, it would send up an alarm. And then the other feature that I noticed about the reports was that many were indicating these objects were radiating light that seemed to fluctuate. And at that age, at a young age, I'm thinking, well, they don't need to see where they're going with light. I mean, they must be very advanced. It's not likely a byproduct of their propulsion systems. So the presumption is that light must have some sort of communication or content within it. And so I came up with these photodiode binoculars, and that was actually in 1981 when I built my first pair, showed it to my friends and family, and with those binoculars, and I've got them right here, so you can see. There's the volume, or that's the step gain control, volume control on this side, and then there's a gain control, and then what's also built into these binoculars is a defocused laser, and what this does is it's defocused, so you don't want to blind pilots or anything. So by the time it gets into distance, no one's going to see it. But this laser is modulated by the light that's received within it, so that if there's something received, and of course whatever is transmitted from something extraterrestrial, we're not going to understand it. It's going to be gibberish.
Right.
I can at least relay it back, and then that'll be delayed about 20 microseconds just through the circuitry, and it's at least an attempt to communicate. So, we're trying to relay back what you just sent us in a different form. Maybe they won't be insulted by that, but that is what the binoculars do. They also can be plugged into a loudspeaker or a recording device or headphones. I usually use them with headphones. And then that device, I've also got, this is a more recent invention from about 3 years ago. It's a pair of night vision goggles that do using a different principle. So it's not the same design, but this has a defocused laser that has a ultraviolet laser, and then I can blend ultraviolet and then red. So it's a continuous variable to it. And then this also takes modulated light and converts it into sound. I did post a demo video of the binoculars and this night vision device that does that. And this can also be connected to a loudspeaker or a recorder device or anything. So just some new devices that can be used as in our toolbox for researching this phenomenon and looking at the light spectrum. We're not looking at radio spectrum, because in my belief is radio to them is the Stone Age. It's Stone Age. It's smoke
Absolutely.
signals. And if you look at our progression of our technology, like when Nikola Tesla invented radio, and I credit him, not the other guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, he he was working within the kilohertz range just because those were the tools that were available to him. But now we keep pushing the RF technology faster and faster, and we're in the gigahertz range, and trying to we're trying to break the terahertz barrier just in the RF technology. 500 gigahertz is kind of where the plateau is at the present time, but that's not even done in commercial products because it's too high a frequency. And when you're using light, we are working in a much higher frequency. So behind me, you'll see that light wave transmitter that's featured in the movie. One's an infrared spectrum, 850 nanometer. The other one's a full spectrum. And then the other one is an ultraviolet. There's some slight overlap, but the object here is to do spread spectrum modulation of frequency modulation and amplitude modulation of content. And we can do it high frequency. I prefer to use music or the sounds of whales, or to relay back. I don't believe that putting out prime numbers or code or anything is going to impress whatever it is we're dealing with, because whatever numbers they're using, our math looks like arithmetic. So
I agree. I totally agree with what you're saying. And this was actually going to be the crux of my question, but I have to pass it over to my co-host so I don't get fired and stuff like that.
Okay, sure.
But I really love that, and it makes total sense. And when I heard you say that in the movie, it really resonated with me. But for the time being, I got to pass it over to Debs.
Sure.
So Deb, what's up?
Yeah. So actually, I'm fascinated by your night vision goggles and what they do, and how you're using the light to make sound. So one of my questions is about those. I want to know if you're considering making an available form of those goggles for the public, because I would love to have something like that too. How much that would cost, and what UAPs sound like.
I don't know what they sound like yet. I know what commercial jets sound like, and satellites and starlight and meteors. In fact, in this YouTube video, you could hear a meteorite amongst that stuff. I don't know exactly what they're going to sound like. It's probably not going to make a sound that we would be expecting. It really was a big effort to make these things, and I've been kicking around the idea of making that into a production device. It would be a very costly device, for one thing, just because alone it's Gen 3 plus night vision, PVS 7s that requires. So just that alone is very expensive. But in the process of making, micro miniaturizing the circuitry, because these things stock, there's really no room inside them. I mean, there's very little room for you to have circuitry. So to take something that already was refined in technology and then refine it more and fit components within it, that was a real challenge as well. The other device, I don't have it in front of me. I have a thermal camera that I re-engineered. That was the most difficult thing to do from an engineering standpoint, and then from the other standpoint of taking something that worked perfect as it was intended, and going in there and just hacking it. But I didn't just hack it. I had to pull out circuitry, put in my own circuits, make it compatible with the stock circuitry, and I engineered a thermal camera that'll take cold temperatures or heat or warm temperatures and convert that into sound. And that device, and that's also on YouTube, so you can see this. And this particular device, I was experimenting with it outdoors, and a bird flock flew overhead, and I aimed the camera, and I could hear the temperatures of the birds as they were flying. I could hear the wings beating because there's variations in temperature. I could also hear bugs as they flew in front, because it would make they just sound like a bug, but I was hearing the long wave infrared. And the reason for that device was I have a couple of thermal camera videos of anomalous objects I've recorded over the years that show they fluctuate in energy or fluctuate in cold temperatures. And to me, that's got to have some sort of content to it. And you have to have some sort of a device that can sense that modulation and decode it, and then be able to transmit that back. I also built a long wave infrared transmitter, and it's also in this demonstration video. That's the device for me was the more pinnacle of invention. from just because it was so much effort to do what it does. But more people are talking about the night vision light to sound just because it certainly, it's cool because you can look through it and hear what you're looking at.
If only you were more productive, Dave, I think you could actually be successful. You know, if you were putting a little more effort into the stuff, okay?
I just want to know how many warranties you avoided at this point.
Like 17 of them. All right, Kevin.
Yeah.
Kevin,
Yeah,
we're going back. We got to get back to Altman with Kevin. They both probably have some pretty nice tattoos. Well, actually, we know Altman does because we saw them. They were awesome. So. Kev, what do you got for all? What do you got for all this?
Well, I mean, I just have a question. I mean, you
I'm
seem
freezing up.
Am I freezing?
No, you're good.
He's back.
Is he back?
Wait,
Yes.
yeah, it's kind of going wonky.
Oh, okay.
All right, can you hear me?
Audio's good.
Got
I
you
can
loud
hear
and
you.
clear, Dave.
So, all right, I got a question for you. So this
Okay,
is more of
I
an
think.
overall umbrella question. So, I mean, taking into consideration, your mysterious airship waves from the 1800s. You've got which were in New Zealand, Canada, the U.S. You've got your sky chariots, your flying shields. My point is, it always seems to be something that's ahead of us, and assuming that our physics and math is universal. I mean, do you think that maybe the phenomenon is a look
I
at our
can't hear
potential future? You can't hear me?
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. Let's see if we can get David Altman out and back, and
All right.
then and then.
Oh wait, you're back.
Oh, well, he's back.
Yeah, all of a sudden I could hear.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Kevin, go for it.
All right. I'm just saying, assuming that our physics and
All right,
math.
go to
is-
Mason.
is-
Go to Mason. And
Okay,
just
Mason.
again,
I'll
man.
ask you this question.
All right.
So, do you think that
I'm gonna
maybe the
refresh.
phenomenon is a potential look into the future of us? Like, if we're on the same path, we're using physics, we're using math, universal principles. Do you think maybe we're going to end up like this with this kind of tech eventually?
It is possible. We can't
Yeah.
deny any possibility because there's so many facets to this mystery that adds to it. And so whether we are looking at ourselves from the future or a visitor from outer space or something that's actually coexisted with us for eons, that's anyone's guess at this point.
It is. Everything is still on the table till it's off the table. Money,
Yeah.
Nathan.
Yeah, I just want to know. I mean, it just feels like super lucky that you guys were able to capture stuff in the short time that you were filming. And that makes me think that maybe it wasn't luck, and you kind of alluded to this before we got onto the show. In your estimation, what does your intuition sort of say? How often is this stuff happening in the sky? You think it's just all the time, everywhere?
It's for the most part, it is everywhere. I've started by recording from my own backyard, and it was purely by accident. And so I'll just give you the synopsis of that. It was in May 3rd, 2005. I took home one of my company's thermal cameras, and this was a $70,000 thermal camera. It had a built-in cryogenically cooled imager. And I took it home thinking I might be able to apply it in long-wave infrared astrophotography and trying to do something new. I was doubtful it would work and found that there really wasn't enough transfer through the Earth's atmosphere. And so my next step was, well, this would be cool to use this camera to record commercial jets flying overhead. And that's all I was thinking. I wasn't thinking UFOs. And just within minutes of using this camera, and this was on an afternoon where the sun was just setting, and the camera detected two very cold objects that were very large, about 5 degrees apparent field of view, which is equivalent to putting your arm out at full length and then spreading your hand. So, and I looked straight up. Thermal camera indicated they were in the field of view, but I couldn't see them, and I had better than 20/20 vision. And so I tracked this with the camera. I recorded them, and when I went back to look at the data, I found that they were measured as -30 Fahrenheit according to the camera's calibrated temperature span. And so
What altitude?
I don't know exactly, but they were minus 30 Fahrenheit. So if I was to get the
Standard lapse rate and all that.
the stuff about what was at altitude, but there's other presumptions because there would be presumption that the objects were black body source versus reflective. There's a lot of other factors that go into thermography. And the fact they made no noise and they moved slow and I couldn't see them, that just captivated me. And then next day I got nothing but birds, bugs, and aircraft. And I thought, well, that's just the way it is. It's one of those once in a lifetime things. And a few months later, I set the camera up again on a tripod while doing astrophotography and came back to review the videos. And there were just some very strange objects that were recorded. Cylinders, V objects that were flying backwards, triangles, something that looked like an undulating serpent that measured about minus 70 Fahrenheit. And I'm going, what is this stuff? This doesn't make any sense. They're not bugs. They're not the conventional things. And I contacted William Puckett of UFOs and W, and he came to my house and got to see my setup and witnessed these objects were appearing in the camera. And at the time, I was contracting in my company. We were contracting with a lot of different entities, and I thought if I come out and talk about UFOs, I could lose those contracts. So I just kind of stayed quiet. I supplied William Puckett a number of my videos, but I wanted to remain anonymous. But over the years of recording, I found that there were variations of the activity because 2006 had less activity. I was getting more of the conventional stuff. And then there was a few years where I got nothing. I mean, I set up my thermal cameras, recorded, came back, reviewed, or if I monitored live, and I would just get the birds, bugs, and aircraft. And so it was like there was some hits and misses on it. And then 2016, I came back very active with the thermal cameras and found that I was late to the party. There were a lot of strange things going on in the sky, including objects that were behind commercial aircraft and in front of a commercial aircraft. And what differentiated them was that their relative temperature to the aircraft were much colder, often in minus 30, minus 80 Fahrenheit range, some crazy temperatures. So as far as the phenomenon goes, I know it's worldwide. I don't think it really matters. I think you just have to have clear skies and maybe a combination of being near water, lakes, mountains, oceans. There's some things that seem to correlate to the sightings, as well as being near airports, because I think they have an interest in our aircraft.
And just for everybody's reference, standard temperature at 20,000 feet would be about minus 12 Fahrenheit, about minus 24 Celsius on a standard day. So if he's seeing minus 80, that's that's a lot. It's very cool.
I got to tell you about one object, and this was with William Puckett, who's a meteorologist, so he would be the one to know. And in one of my videos, I had a very cold V chevron-shaped object that was transiting. And I presented it to William Puckett, and I said, what would be the temperature? And he says, well, given the reading was, I think, minus 70 or minus 75. He said that would have placed it about 90,000 feet elevation. Well, then, since I knew the camera field of view, which was 15 degrees by 20 degrees for this particular camera, I could then measure the amount of area the object occupied and then do some trigonometry. I did that. The object measured 2,200 feet across.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, that's a crazy number.
Yeah,
and so it doesn't make sense. And then people can say, oh, in thermography we have this factor of emissivity. Yeah, that's true. So if you have an object that's in the sky and say like a commercial jet, it's always going to measure warmer, even though it might be up at 35,000 feet and in a cold environment. It's going to be reflecting back the crust of the Earth's soil. I mean, the soil will be radiating heat and then reflected back from the underside of the aircraft back to the thermal camera. So you will get higher temperatures.
Yes.
And then if you have objects that are flat black that aren't going to be reflecting, they're going to be more indicating their environment. So if that's the case, then the problem that happens with these strange objects that have been reported is they must be immense in scale. And it throws out the drone theory and all these things that people would like to throw at it.
And we're going to pass it over to Stephanie, our experiencer, but even just flying through the air, that friction creates heat as well. In addition, so you have the sun's heat, got the Earth's heat, and the heat created by friction of that wing form or that fuselage flying through the air creates its own heat. But let us
Yep.
turn it over to our UAP experiencer, Miss Stephanie.
And that says quite a bit. Hi, nice to see you both. And I just also wanted to mention how cool it was that you both had your nose in the books at a very young age, and you're both now serving as a liaison for information to deliver this information through, documentaries and film. So very,
And
very
we're
cool.
both and we're both Dave.
And you're
Yeah!
both Dave. And that serves as a very, good standard for kids to follow as well. So great. That you guys are both, serving out, this almost self-fulfilling prophecy as you were as a kid. So very cool. And love the movie. So my question for you is a little bit more on the emotional side, because, I know you're both nuts and bolts and you're tech. And, we all appreciate all of the work that you're putting forth towards finding out, answers for what we all want to know. And my question is, Dave Mason, I know that you have these instruments that are used for monitoring the potential for communication. And my question for you both is, tech aside, how emotionally prepared are you for communication? How do you feel about that, tech aside?
You want to take that, Altman?
To you, buddy.
No, bring it to Dave. Dave,
You
Altman,
all
he
right.
can answer
I figured
that.
he was already on the screen, so it's
Right
a
on.
second.
We can fix
Yeah.
that,
Cool,
baby.
cool.
So-
I had to throw it in.
So one thing is, I'm not 100% all nuts and bolts.
Okay.
I do think that there's some other weird stuff going on with these things. It's just too crazy to be just that.
Right.
It also could be multiple things,
Mhm.
From what I've learned, my personal opinion is I think it's something that's always been here and could possibly be living underwater. That's
Nice.
that's just my personal opinion.
Yep.
I'm not sold on anything 100% until I'm convinced or obviously shown the evidence. So
Right. Well, and it does make sense. Over by Santa Catalina Island, there's San Clemente Island. And I know that there's been submergible objects that have been also detected. And our military has also had some events happen where we've had a sub go down. And I wonder if that has any correlation with what's going on underneath. So, very questionable suspect for sure. I agree.
yeah, that whole area, Catalina Island, was actually used by the OSS during World War II, which is the precursor to the CIA. That was their training ground. So,
Yeah.
it started back then. And then one of the articles I mentioned earlier that I got, it was from July 7th, 1947, front page of the Catalina Island newspaper. And it's two retired airmen spot flying discs, and they took pictures. And you can find those pictures.
Yeah.
And that was the same week as Roswell, the same week as Kenneth Arnold, the same week as a whole bunch of other stuff that happened. So I doubt it was different objects. I think whatever they saw was the same thing that whole week.
It does make sense. It makes sense if they're entering the water and moving without, the splash, and, how are these crafts going about the atmosphere and into the water? There's a connection. I do agree with that.
Yeah, and also Battle of L.A. That object, 1942, went down the coast, out to Catalina, and then out to the ocean and gone. Same spot.
Nice.
That was the drone, man. It was the Chinese.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I, just to your organization, I'm wondering if there is any sort of a quota or limitation on David's, since I'm a David, and I would apply, but I don't want to do that in vain if you guys have already reached a certain limitation.
Well,
okay, there's no limit. I'll apply. Give me an application. Give me the website. I'll get my CV. Just kidding. Dave, so of all the data that you've gathered, and it's interesting of what your colleague said over there, because Ryan Graves also could not see with Mark I eyeballs that gimbal. That was something that appeared on his sensor, but that he couldn't see with Mark I eyeballs. So of the data that you've collected through these array of equipment that you guys have, what did you find the most compelling that had that sort of oh shit moment?
Is this to me?
No, it's to I'm gonna start. We gotta get some Altman time in here, man.
All right, you go ahead.
So that's easy for me. The object that I filmed, so for the first probably 2 days when we got on the island, we went out there unprepared by some miscommunication. And for the first 2 days, I wasn't able to record any of the night vision that I caught. It wasn't until I think the second or third day that we realized that we could record through our iPhones to anything that we saw. So
Wow.
the object that I filmed, I could not see with the naked eye. It was directly in front of me, and I could only see it with the night vision. So, and I'll say it again, I don't know what it was, but I know what it wasn't. No, it wasn't a satellite, wasn't a plane, it wasn't a drone, it wasn't any of those things. I have no idea. I don't know what it was. And that's
Do you have
what
an
was,
approximate?
and that's what we triangulated was that.
Okay. What did you figure that altitude was of that object?
You know, I don't even remember offhand. I just remember because I was on a roof and I was looking at the horizon where the ocean kind of meets the sky, and it was right in that halfway spot, you know, in direct my eyesight. So it wasn't high. It wasn't high.
Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. Dave Mason, we could just ask you that same question because you seem very keen on that one. What was it of what you gathered? What provided you that oh my God moment? It's a family show after all. As Nathan likes to say, what was it of what you've gathered thus far that was moving for you?
It was after our expedition. We were reviewing the data, and I was reviewing the FLIR videos, and this is very arduous because we have over 600 hours of FLIR video to analyze. And an object appeared it was Carolyn Corey spotted it in her reviews, and then Matthew Sadagas using his software also found it. I actually missed it when I went over that time. And it's an object that is, it appears to be a maroon color object in the movie. Now, understand in FLIR, these are false colors. These are just gradients to help give you visual acuity. But the object materializes over several pixels and then rotates or appears to rotate and then fade out. And what I found very striking about that wasn't the shape or anything else of that. It was the fact that the microbolometer cells decreased in temperature momentarily and then returns to a normal temperature. Now, when you get hot pixels, they are in fact white or they'll go dark, but they don't just gradiently go in and out. I've never seen that happen. It's not impossible. It's highly improbable. But the most improbable part is the fact that it got colder. If it was bombarded by, say, radiation and say a big cosmic ray struck it, well, that would raise the temperature of the microbolometer cell and then cause a warmer manifestation, not a colder one. And so that really got my attention.
David, was that a purposeful cloaking attempt? Do you think that was an attempt to obfuscate the fact that your sensor was picking it up? Possibly.
This could also be some very unknown atmospheric phenomenon where we have zones that just suddenly become cold and then return. But what I do find that in a lot of these objects that I've recorded in thermography over the years is that they're detected in the wavelengths of 13,000 to 14,000 nanometer wavelengths, much longer, where our visual is like 350, 380 to about 750, give or take 50 nanometers. You know, there's people who see differently. Our night vision technology, whether it's your home security system or Gen 3, is going to go down to about 1,000 nanometers, maybe 1,100 nanometers. And then here we're imaging wavelengths well past any of that equipment. And it could be that these objects are actually only emitting those particular wavelengths, which also corresponds to temperature. And it might be cloaking. It could be that they're low mass. I mean, you could throw a lot of different theories behind it.
Yep, it's interesting. I got to pass it over to Debs, my friend.
Hello. So this is sort of a question for both of you. There was a very significant conference this weekend with SEU, and I am aware that UAPX was talking about findings related to the film. And I was just wondering if you could maybe tell us something that may have come out at the conference about the data.
I haven't been copied on that yet since I'm not in attendance. Matthew Sadaga said as soon as he's got the video, he's going to copy me on that. I know that they're covering much of what I had uncovered in this expedition. And so I know that they are always cautious about everything, because you never want to say something's absolute without having all the facts. And, I know there's a lot of people who want to jump to conclusions against it without even having all the facts presented to them, because we're in essence taking people out of their comfort zone. And also the fact that there are other groups who are wanting to do the same, and they don't like the fact that we have taken the limelight, or we have taken this and taken it to another level.
They should just do it. I mean,
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it gets political, unfortunately.
I'm pretty sure what they are covering, though, are the events that were in the film, because that's the data that was looked at first. So it would be, the anomaly. It would be probably some of the objects that were falling, and I think there's like 3 and the triangulation. That makes sense.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey guys, we haven't heard about your new organization. We did hear that you are not with UAPX. You're with a different organization now. I wonder, am I not correct about that?
No, so we're no longer with UAPX, but we're not members of any other organization.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was solicited, and this one organization who solicited me wanted, in essence, they wanted my inventions, and they wanted to use it as a banner, and I kind of felt like this wasn't really serving my interest in there, and so I dropped contact, and I kind of think that they're not very happy with me about this.
I mean, do they have matching 401k like our podcast? I don't know.
It's true. Well, you guys are a part of the Council of Daves, so that is
Right.
some organization. So a question I wanted to ask is, so after having done this sort of analysis near Catalina, are there other sites that you're really kind of keen on getting equipment out to that you have either heard of or maybe just interested in because of the properties of that particular area?
Want me to take that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
So properties that I want to go to, or properties that I can go to? I mean,
those are good questions. Yeah.
We'll get you in Area 51 by Monday.
So a couple of places I could think off the bat. One would be Chris Bledsoe's area.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah. Another one would be a newer property. It's not much known about it. It's called the Meadow, that Trey Hudson has been writing a lot about. Those would probably be my top 2.
Okay.
I mean, those are probably properties that I heard there's some weird stuff going on, and there, not many people have been there. So that's why.
Got it. Okay. Are both, I know with the Bledsoe property, it is relatively close to the ocean. With the Meadow property, is it similar to that as well?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Okay. Got it. All right. What about from you, Mason? What do you think in terms of locations that you have an interest in?
I actually have some spots identified. Because of some privacy concerns with the property owners, I don't want to mention, but they really look like great sites for doing a sky watch.
We were going to copy the GPS coordinates. Nathan, do you got your?
I know.
We'll take them in
ready.
MGRS.
That's already.
But
Well,
you can do this anywhere, though.
I'm kidding.
You
I'm
can
kidding.
do it-
We're kidding.
Yeah.
You could do this anywhere. You don't really. I mean, I get the question, but you don't need to have a hot area. That would be.
I think it's the most important is just to have at least a moderately clear sky with open space. And I want to get back to the earlier question, and this was about what do you do to prepare mentally for these things. And what I found from my experience is if I go out in a sky watch, or if I do a simple one with night vision goggles and some friends, and just say we're just going to look for anomalous stuff, we see this stuff. You'll see satellites that change trajectory, so therefore they're not a satellite. And then there's other activities I engage in, like with Bellevue College, we would do these what they call the Table Mountain Star Party in Washington State, and there would be 600 astronomers gathered here at this star party up on top of this ridge, 6,000 feet elevation. And everybody would 600 astronomers, telescopes in the field everywhere, and in attendance to this thing. I never once heard anyone say, "Oh, look at that thing in the sky." We certainly got excited when we saw the International Space Station or a meteorite, but nothing abnormal. And it's like, because when you're looking through a telescope, you're just looking through either the eyepiece, which is a very narrow field of view, or you're looking at a data set on a computer trying to do tracking of your telescope's coordinates so that your exposures are well coordinated on the object that you're imaging. So your eyes aren't always focused on the sky. And I don't know if this is because if you go into a scenario where you want to see something and therefore you see it, or if you're making it happen by having that level of thought. But those have been my experiences. If you do go out and you have the right mindset, and you're with people who also have the right mindset, and not people who are disruptive. I'll just tell you, there was a time I went out on an event, and this one person just showed up and was loud and obnoxious, and I just knew game's over. The evening is shot. We're not going to see anything. And so it's just like, you got to have the right people.
And I apologize for doing that, and that's why I left, Dave. I was that guy. I'm just kidding.
Real quick before I forget, and I have not mentioned this during an interview yet. So I think it was the third night we were out there. We were on the roof, and we were supposed to have the hotel roof closed to ourselves.
Oh, I know the story.
Yeah. So this guy comes up, and he is wasted, and he did not care what we said. He was going to be up on that roof, and he saw us filming, and he wanted to, the last thing I wanted him to know was we were doing a UFO thing, because I can just imagine what would have happened. So he asked me, he's like, "What are you guys doing up here?" And I'm like, "Sorry, sir, we're just filming something, but this is actually closed right now to the public." And right when I said that was the wrong thing to say, because then he wasn't going to leave. We ended up having to call the hotel, like the owners and the cops, and they finally got him down. And then when they told him, I guess when he finally figured out what we were doing up there, he wanted to come up and talk to us again, but by then it was too late. But he was up there for like a good 3 hours at least.
You have to come up with a backup plan for those kind of instances. Oh, we're taking pictures, anniversary pictures. It's a school project. Nothing to be concerned with. Yeah.
This kind of coincides with what happened where we were set up on Laguna Beach. We had the cops show up. We had an irate neighbor show up who was a neighboring to this mansion. He thought that we were spying on him with all this gear. The movie cops making sure that we were permitted. It was like, and then we got buzzed by 2 different helicopters, and we were able to see that by getting the tail number, we knew where they had traveled. They took off from one airport, they looped around the house, and then went back to another airport. And this happened twice. We were obviously being spied on.
Yeah.
And that was one of the concerns we had while filming, because I didn't want somebody to know, okay, we're going to be there at this time, where they would just go fly a drone and then say,
we kept it pretty hush-hush of when we were going to be
there. Because then they would just say, they'll videotape themselves flying the drone, and then just say, this is what we did, and this is what those guys caught, case closed. And, because people like to play that kind of stuff. So we didn't want to put that information out there. Plus, we had the right gear to vet that. I had the RF spectrum analyzer to look for the frequencies of what would be transmitted to a drone craft. So there's just no chance that would happen.
And Jeremy's ADSB out kit that he has with that upside down antenna will give you all that information of what the tail number is, what kind of craft it is, and it can track it and all that stuff.
Yeah, the ADSB data is actually something you could just look at on your iPhone. So you can watch and see where aircraft are and what altitude and where they're going. It's pretty amazing that that's available to the public.
They were sending me screenshots every 5 minutes.
I love it. I'm trying to think of who's, before I get to my communication question, Kevin's up.
All right. So I want to tell you guys, I really, really enjoyed your documentary. So as a behaviorist, I value data that's specific, observable, measurable. I really, really love your approach. It was scientific. I think this is the way to go to bringing it mainstream. I think it's the way to go. So my question to you is, nobody asked about the anomaly. I know you guys were calling it the what was it called? wormhole, but I know that was pure speculation. That's not actually what it is. Have you learned about anything since about it?
Unfortunately, I don't have that data. So when we went back to our our private lives, I have all the FLIR recordings. I have the original thumb drive recordings. Everybody else has copies of that, but I don't have what was taken from the UFO DAP camera, which is that camera is owned by Carolyn Corey, and I don't have that data, and I don't have the radiation data that Matthew Sadagas had gathered. And so because I was getting overwhelmed when we were at the site, because I had to be responsible for 8 FLIR cameras, making sure they were calibrated and running, to make sure the data loggers weren't being overwhelmed and that we could reload new thumb drives to them. It was very, very busy maintaining all that equipment. So to put it in perspective, everything you saw on the rooftops is owned by me. I was the one
everything.
Everything, with the exception, there was one camera on the UFO DAP camera, which was the camera on the wooden tripod off on the corner of the rooftop. That's owned by Carolyn Corey. She purchased that for the purpose of being able to gather data using that automated system. So yeah, I had a tremendous amount of stuff to manage. So when it came down to more data, and here we had 2 PhDs ready to go, I just thought, you guys, go look at that thing and see what you can find out.
All right. Do you have any speculations on it?
I really don't. I can't make comments. No. Because what I really like to look at data when somebody just shows me a photo of like a UFO and it's just a blue background and an object. I have no idea if that's a bug or some massive object in the distance. I mean, you really can't preside an opinion on it without getting more information to gather on it.
Hey, Kev, though, just to throw a bug in your ear, there was that capsule that popped into frame and popped out. That you might.
That's true.
Yeah,
I remember that.
That was that thing. Yeah, and that was what strikes me was the fact if that thing was a warm manifestation, I would have thought possibly a very high energy cosmic ray struck the microbolometer and caused it to heat up momentarily and cause that. But the fact it went negative energy or temperature, it wouldn't be at the microbolometer level. It would have to be at the A to D converter behind the microbolometer if it got struck. But I really don't think we can replicate that in the lab.
Well, that was something else.
I have a follow-up too. How comfortable were you guys in those outfits, in the khaki and the red? The target team member.
Oh, you mean those red shirts? We had to kind of make a decision about the colors.
Uncomfortable.
The shirts were fine. It was a hot day. I mean, it was from a production standpoint because I wanted a blue shirt. Because red shirts, let's just face it, all the guys in Star Trek except one that wore red shirts were
That's where I was going.
They all got killed.
The hats were cool. The hats were okay.
Yeah. So you kind of felt like you were next in line to get zapped by the 3-headed alien or whatever it was.
Right.
Not to mention, I was on an island at a bed and breakfast that had no washer and dryer. 24/7. I only had 2 shirts and 2 pairs of shorts. So I had to figure out every single night how I was going to wash my clothes. Because after being up on a roof all day in the sun, I mean, they were drenched. I had to figure out. I paid a lady like $20 to wash my shirt.
I wash that in the shower, David. When I was away for the Air Force somewhere, I'd be like, "Hey, man, no laundry. Go in the shower, soap it up, rinse it off, hang it up." So.
The second I could put something else on, I put it on.
Hell yeah.
We actually had a failure of our dryer at the mansion. It worked for the first few days and then it quit running. I think it broke a belt. And so we ended up just hang drying all of our laundry off the balcony. And luckily it was a hot, dry day, so everything dried quickly.
This is true sacrifice, David Mason. I salute you. Stephanie, we got to start to get in our last round. What you got, my friend?
All right. Well, let's see. Okay, I'm not on mute. So, you guys do work with some dangerous, say gamma rays. I know that those can be extremely dangerous. Do you guys wear anything that would give you any sense of, have you been exposed to anything, such as a badge or anything? Oh, roger that. Okay,
the
like
lead
the
boxer
hyper color
briefs
they changed. Nice.
So we weren't using actual devices that were transmitting radiation. We were just using passive
Okay.
radiation detection. Now there's
Okay.
radiation all the time from outer space. Even the Earth is radiating, and so we were just using two different radiation devices. So Matthew had a radiation analyzer called the Cosmic Watch. It was developed by MIT, and that radiation analyzer was hooked to a laptop doing a data logging.
Okay.
And then I designed my own radiation analyzer. It actually wasn't as sophisticated. It was just a dual well, I call it a dual spectrum, but it was two Geiger tubes. One tube is heavily shielded, one wasn't shielded. So I could differentiate between the harder energy and lower energy type radiation. And I will say that when his radiation analyzer was showing big numbers, mine, which was doing clicks and beeps, was just going crazy. I mean, it was corresponding. So we were just simply detecting these gamma bursts that were coming through. And unfortunately, that's everywhere. Everybody gets bombarded by them. It's nothing to do with government. It's natural stuff from outer space, and we have to live with it.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, I was curious about that.
Yeah, the
Very
ISS has got some serious radiation going on there, man. They got to be shielded in that place.
Now, astronauts even experience in outer space, if they close their eyelids, they'll see flashes because, sometimes you'll experience that if you've ever gone to bed and you're just dozing off and you see kind of a flash in your eyeball. That's often a cosmic ray that just went in and initiated a trigger on one of your eyeballs. So that's a natural thing that happens. But when you're in outer space, there's a tremendous amount of radiation striking you. Now, when I've done radiation measurements, I find that if you have an overcast night sky, overcast with clouds, that's when I get the minimal amount of background radiation. But if the sun's out and it's a clear day, it's like 20% more on the average that I measure from my radiation analysis.
Totally makes
Very
sense.
well. Thank you.
Debsy Websy has an audience question from Baby Goat. What's up, girl?
Okay.
Oh, I thought it said Groot. That's why I said that.
No, Baby Goat was asking, what are their thoughts on the UAP hearings? So this is for both of you.
I haven't heard from them just yet. Oh, are we talking about the
congressional?
The congressional. I thought that it was kind of a disappointment from the standpoint of what they covered. They only covered things that had already been somewhat debunked. The bigger cases, they ignored that data. A lot of obfuscation and Framis, where I would say Framis because of some gibberish that was mentioned, but it was not anything really concrete that gave us anything tangible that would get us excited. But the excitement was that the fact that there was a congressional hearing, and that's a step moving forward. And I'm excited about that aspect because we know that there will be follow-up on this.
I agree. And I'll tell you, they bollocksed us on that Jeremy Corbell video. I challenge anybody to take a 35 millimeter camera, shoot it through a night vision device on deck, and produce those 3D pyramids. And I challenge anybody to produce something that looks like that because I don't buy that, not for a second. So that's my thought. Who's next? Is that Monet?
You wanted to get Altman's reaction to that question?
To the hearings?
Yeah.
Sir.
I guess probably I was taken back by a couple of things, just like a lot of other people. The Wilson documents being mentioned, for one. As far as, the video evidence, if you don't go in expecting much, then you won't be too let down. So, I wasn't anything exciting for me.
Dave,
I could see how somebody who doesn't know about this stuff could be taken, kind of excited, but people that, live with this every day and do this 24/7, kind of knew weren't going to see much.
Hey, Dave, they clearly sat there at the drive on Sipper or J-Wix and go, what's the worst video we have where it's the most unclear what the hell we're looking at, where we'll have to stop it like 17 times to even discern that something's happening? And that's the one they picked for that out the window fighter video. So I agree with your colleague Mason. Overall, definitely positive that they had those hearings, but they did. I have to raise that BS flag on the Maelstrom Air Force Base, on the Jeremy Corbell video, and but I am also gratified they mentioned Wilson Davis. I know. I wish
Yeah.
there was a question in there, but there isn't. Nathan, go ahead, brother.
Well, first of all, just again, thank you guys for being with us today and talking about the work that's gone into this documentary, and we really did enjoy it a lot. What would you like to see happen next in terms of how we can encourage, promote, and make it more distributed efforts like this to get more data, to develop platforms that are easy to deploy? You know, what are we thinking there in terms of how we roll this out and do more?
Well, a lot of people, you know, can do this. You don't need to go out and spend, you know, millions of dollars. You can just save up and go and get yourself a nice pair of night vision goggles. I mean, if I was going to start someplace, night vision goggles and maybe up on my roof, and just keep looking up, and people will catch something, and then just need to get that data and put it out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Citizen science, baby.
That's it.
David, the most interesting thing that I heard in your movie is what you spoke about at the beginning, is about communication with light. Now, I realize, you know, I wish Nathan had queued up the Close Encounters of the Third Kind with the lights and the tones, because we'll remember that for the rest of our life, how that goes, by the way. But I don't think I've heard anyone else posit that theory or that hypothesis that that could be a form of communication, and you are trying to communicate with them that way. And I'm absolutely fascinated. Could you speak about that in a little more detail, please?
Yeah, it just follows what I mentioned earlier about many of the documented stories going back, you know, before Hollywood, even, that these reports saying that these things had lights that rotated or had lights that pulsed. And the fact that our RF technology continues to evolve and where we're going higher and higher frequency. And I would only assume that any ET would be using the electromagnetic spectrum at an even higher frequency, because the higher the frequency you go, the more data sets you can put on that frequency. And behind me, when you look at the light wave transmitter, that ultraviolet light wave transmitter is bumping just above 800 terahertz in frequency, way above, you know, we're talking terahertz in frequency, and we're modulating that as frequency and amplitude modulation. That is a big leapfrog in the electromagnetic spectrum as far as the attempt of communication into whatever we may be dealing with. And so that we're trying to work with them at their spectrum that they appear to be transmitting data sets to us. And when I was deciding what to transmit, you know, I want to say that I had mentioned this to the group in UAPX. I said, you know, I'm looking for stuff to transmit. And Kevin Day suggested the sounds of whales and dolphins. And Michael Hall, you know, said, well, he agreed on this. And so I got some recordings that were from it's an anonymous supplier, but I said, I want to have recordings of these whales and dolphins in the ocean expressing happiness. I don't want a recording of a whale or a dolphin that's in a holding tank and saying, I want out of this thing.
Right.
So I wanted to have that type of communication and then to loop it. Now, the reason for transmitting that, you know, whales and dolphins have been around for millions of years, and I'm not trying to do a parody of the Star Trek 4 thing with Spock, although it seems to coincide with it. They've got much larger brains than we have. And if we transmit this data in the set of their sounds in the form of modulated light over different spectrums, we're sending out the message that we hold a species other than ourselves in higher regard. We're not holding ourselves in arrogant form. I think if I was to pick up a microphone and speak English, that's an arrogant form, because English does not represent the world. And so you have to move that aside. And then when you transmit this, you're telling whatever's out there that you hold this other species in higher regard than ourselves, or as the same level. But also we accept species that don't look like us. And that may be one of the things that holds them back, because maybe their appearances may startle us. And so this is a way of saying, here's a species that doesn't look like us, it doesn't startle us, and we're transmitting their information. And in a way to implore a response. I really just don't think that putting computer data or prime numbers or binary or whatever you want, I don't think they're going to be impressed by that.
This is absolutely fascinating. So you're going to turn that whale sound into a light wave spectrum, like that they can then receive as in the form of light that they can receive. Is that
Right.
what I'm understanding?
Yeah. Now, of course, if they send it back in their language, all I could do is record it, but I don't
Right.
think I can't echo it, but at least it's this first. It's like somebody speaking a different language who tries to introduce themselves. You may not speak their language, but you can understand there's an attempt. And the gesture of attempt means that we're open to suggestion. You can try to contact us.
Well, Nathan can decode it for you if you get something back. So don't worry about that.
No problem.
Yeah, we've got that part covered. But no, this is. Has anybody on the panel, Deb, Kevin, Steph, and Nathan, has anybody heard of this before? Before David Mason?
I have through musical notes in keys of C and A. So I wonder if that could correlate somehow with the sounds of the whales when they're making their sounds.
I
So
mean,
that would
through
be-
light, though. Through light is what I'm asking.
Through light, no. Through auditory, yes, but not through light as of yet. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we were also transmitting. I play solo acoustic guitar. I recorded a CD, and I was looping that, and not trying to self-promote my guitar music, but I just figured it's no one else's copyright, so I figured I'd be okay with that.
Sure.
And then Carolyn Corey had her own music that was being transmitted, so a lot of that was just we could use our own stuff, so no one can claim, hey, we played Rush 2112 album, and now we got to
Hey,
they find out
fan.
that we need to get a
Copyright
license.
strike. Yeah.
I'm sure if we contacted them, they'd probably say, yeah, go ahead, just give an honorable mention. But we didn't
Sure.
do that. And,
Geddy Lee's coming after you, Mason.
Yeah.
I can. He
They may
said,
respond
man,
for us.
yeah.
yeah, I mean, so that's why we used our own guitar music. But if he
Oh,
was
love
to
it.
contact us and say, yeah, please use that album or our latest album or something honoring Neil Peart, yeah, I would do it.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Right now, there's a Led Zeppelin fan saying it should have been Over the Hills and Far Away. All right. I love it. You guys
Yeah,
are
I know that song. It's in the key of G.
All right.
That might be the one.
All right. This was amazing. You guys are great. We're going to start our goodbyes with the aforementioned Miss Stephanie, UAP experiencer.
Yeah, well, I really liked Carolyn's mention at the end of your film that how we're trying to figure out how we fit beyond the bigger picture. So what you guys are, putting forth towards the subject is just one piece of the puzzle. I know that we all serve in some form in this whole, dynamic. And I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for creating this. And it's been a pleasure speaking with both of you. So thank you.
Thank you. It's
Thanks
been a
for having
pleasure.
Thank you.
Kev.
Well, I just want to say thank you. It's been awesome meeting you guys. I really enjoyed your production, and I'm really interested in where you're going with this because I'm a musician too. So, yeah, I would really love if you maybe put this in a public domain. If I could record my own music and send it off into space in the form of light, that would be fantastic. I'd be all down for that. Yeah, man, you could. Yeah, are you thinking about getting on that, like marketing, or is it just so complicated?
I haven't, the one thing is a lot of people are asking me about, well, are you going to do this or take your inventions and do this other stuff? And I run a corporation and I have so many responsibilities in doing that, contracts that it's often at the end of the day, I just want to relax and
Right.
pretty much do nothing, like a lot of guys want to do nothing. And so it's hard for me to manage a lot of different things. And when you get your hands in so many activities, the whole music thing, I wanted to follow that. When I recorded the CD, I thought, wow, this is going to be a career. But I found out my friends who were really serious about it weren't doing very well financially from it. And I've got expensive hobbies, so I couldn't afford to go there.
I was in the music business for over 20 years.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
I managed bands and I worked for all the record labels. I did A&R work.
Wow. Awesome.
You guys are awesome, man. You guys are
Oh
such
my
a pair.
Yeah, right.
By the way, David, before we turn it over to Debs to speak her piece, are you guys aligned together now? Do you guys have your own group, or are you guys all disparate at this point?
We're trying to stick together. I mean, as far as another group, I don't think I'll ever join a group ever again. If I do, it'll be a casual thing. I'm not going to join something that has leaders and vice leaders and founders and co-founders and all that jazz. It just has to be a casual thing. Let's go out, learn something, collect the data, and have fun. You know.
All right.
So, yeah, I think Dave Grohl's looking for another guitar player, and at least you should consider it.
Another Dave.
Yeah. We're way over the quota. Debs, what you got, buddy?
Yeah, well, first of all, I definitely want to be best friends with both of you, and not just because someone has really cool binoculars and the other one's just chill and cool. No, that's not it. It's because you guys are doing good work. We could be BFFs. Okay. Next thing is, I was thinking of Mr. Holland's Opus. I don't know if anyone else is familiar with that movie. There's a
Richard
scene
Dreyfuss.
where he wants to communicate music to his son, and he uses a light show and he uses vibration. And I think people forget vibration is a big part of this. And I think there's a lot going on there. And I think you've touched on it, and you're really capturing something really important with this. And I want to see more. Awesome stuff. Good job. And I think this movie was excellent. And the fact that you highlighted the silence is what we need right now. So thank you guys so much. Excellent work.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, future BFF.
She has no filter and no shame. We love her. Money, Nathan.
Yeah, well, so while I can't be a part of the Council of Daves, unfortunately, I, again, really admire everything that you guys have done. And I have no doubt we're going to continue to see things that come out of the work that you've started here and the things
It's
that you're
not over
interested
yet.
in. Exactly, right?
Yeah.
The story is not finished. And that is incredibly exciting. And I think we're entering into a period where the kinds of things that you did are just going to be more easily accessible for other people to do, and the evidence will continue to mount and will be irrefutable. So kudos again to kind of being part of that movement and helping to get that going.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting. I've got another invention I can't talk about yet, but it's built and tested. It's also different than, like, as you've seen with these other inventions, and another one under development. And I just want to keep creating new devices and just thinking outside the box.
Fantastic.
I'll tell you what. I hopefully I have Altman on Twitter. Are you on Twitter, David Mason?
No, I'm only on Facebook, and I also have a YouTube channel.
Okay, well, I'll send him, he's got our information in case, because if you want to come back on again and talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about, I'm fascinated. You're the first person I have heard talk about communicating with the phenomenon through light, to convert sound into a sine wave of light, into a wave form, let me call it, of light that they can receive, and particularly the particular animal that you chose and why you chose it is even the entire thing is just absolutely fascinating. So both of you, please feel free to come back on this forum and join us to talk about whatever you're doing. We will welcome you. And also I want to say, Mason, your mustache, highly underrated. Nobody's mentioned that yet. That's outstanding.
I accidentally, one time I shaved it by accident, and I was shaving and I hit one side, and then I thought I'll shave the other side. Then I had the Adolf look, so I took the whole thing off, and then I was talking to people like this.
So we begin talking with David's hair, and we end with David's hair.
Yeah.
So now you understand cab. Now you understand cab, Altman.
Yeah.
This is what it's about, man. We go from the ridiculous to the sublime. I mean, it's a sign. It's a sign. If you notice, this is alternating current. Comedy, serious. Comedy, serious.
Cal Shatner about us.
Yeah,
Cal
and I do. Deb is suggesting that I send you my skincare formula, which can also be used as a beard balm, or in your case, a Charles Bronson-esque mustache balm. So if you want some of that, let me know. Nathan is actually on my new label is coming out with his face on the can, so you will recognize this face when you receive DJ Bespoke Skincare.
I think I'll have to grow the beard out a bit more.
There you go. There you
I'll have to
go.
grow it out. When I did that, I did have people saying that I looked like Kenny Loggins.
Oh yeah. You should play that song, Danny's song from Loggins and Messina. I love it.
Get close to the danger zone there.
Yeah. This is
DJ, if you expand your product line, can we have an Anywho product?
You know what, Deb? For you, yes, I will. I'm willing to toy around with my ingredients and create something that you would endorse with your label on there. The answer is yes. Okay.
Deb plush.
Yeah, I'm so blessed to have 4 amazing co-hosts on this thing, as you can tell, David Altman and David Mason. And it was an honor to have both of you. And like I said, the forum's open when you want to come back and have some fun while we're talking about these serious issues that you guys are spending a lot of your emotions, your time, your money, and your intellect in. And on behalf of Stephanie, Kevin, Debs, Money, Nathan, and myself, this is Calling All Beings saying peace out, one love, and we'll see you down the road. We're always wondering what's up around the bend.
Okay.